Hey y'all, this is your Sassy Southern Grandma. My name is Cindy. Glad to have you back with us this week. We were a little bit serious last week, so this week we're going to talk about some fun stuff. Some Southern sayings that you may have heard, but you may not have heard. If you haven't been in the South very much, we say some strange things down there. And I'll try to explain to you what they mean and what context it is that we say them in. And hopefully you won't think we're not as smart as the rest of the country, because we are. Don't be fooled by the accent. So we're going to start with one of the ones you hear all the time in the South is fixin' to. I'm fixing to go to the store.
Fixing to be yours.
Are you fixing to do dinner? Are you fixing to cook supper? Are you fixing? It's not about fixing something that's broken. It's, are you getting ready to? Are you fixing to go to the store because I want to go with you? I know, it don't make any sense, but that's how we talk. And another way of saying fixing is, are you fixing supper yet? In the South, supper is what everybody else calls dinner. It's breakfast, dinner, at least in Eastern North Carolina, the middle meal at noon is called dinner, and then what everybody else calls dinner, we call supper.
Brian, is she calling dinner supper?
So you ask your mama, are you fixing supper yet? I'm hungry. So fixing is you're going to do something, and fixing is also cooking or making. So lots of things you got to know what context they're in to know what they mean, if you can figure it out. One thing I heard my daddy say recently, he was in the hospital, and he said if he could get home and get some food that was fitting to eat, he'd start feeling a little bit better. But this food wasn't fitting to eat in the hospital. Fitting to eat. Yeah, that's a thing. Is it fitting to eat? That's something you'll hear all the time in the South. Because if it ain't fitting to eat, they ain't having it. Now, they eat some weird things, but the things they eat better be fitting to eat. Don't give them one of those little expensive meals that's got 3 little pieces of something. You better have some food on the plate or it ain't fitting to eat. Another thing we say is when you're surprised about something or you see something unusual, you say, that beats all I ever seen. Kind of self-explanatory. That beats all I've ever seen. It's more extravagant, more unusual, more crazy than anything I've ever seen. And one that you might know, because it's kind of outside the South too, is dead as a doornail. They thought they were going to resuscitate him, but he was dead as a doornail. And I looked this one up. Doornails are nails that were put into doors. Believe it or not, back in the day when people started building with nails, you know, they used to do just tongue and groove with just wood on wood. When they started using nails, nails were very expensive, and they would reuse them. If they had something that fell apart or something they weren't using anymore, they'd take all the nails out and save them because they were expensive. Those were not the dead nails. The dead nails were the door nails, because once they put a door up and put those nails in, they were in there for good and they weren't coming back out. So dead as a doornail is a nail that's in a door because they're not going to use it anymore, so it's dead. I learned something new today by looking that up. We also have names and phrases for people that are highfalutin, you know, uppity, the rich folks. They're living in high cotton. Of course, that's from back in the day when cotton was the big thing in the South. And if the cotton was high, you were going to make the big money. So if you hear somebody say in the South, they're living in high cotton, or we're living in high cotton now, that means they've got plenty of money. And the other phrase that's close to that is high on the hog. We're eating high on the hog tonight. That's if you're going to have something other than rice and beans and rice. If you're having something that's very good and very out of the ordinary and something that's more expensive, you're eating high on the hog, because the parts of the meat on the top of the hog are supposed to be the best ones. We're not talking about the pig's feet and the tail and all those things at the bottom now. We're talking about eating high on the hog. So that's another one. You're either living in high cotton or you're eating high on the hog. We have a lot of phrases to describe people too. If you've ever watched Reba, if you've ever watched her on The Voice especially, you will hear her say, "You are cute as a button."
All the time. It's just cute as a button. And
that's something you hear all the time in the South. She's just as cute as a button. And the opposite of that would be, he's as ugly as homemade soap. Some people say homemade sin, but homemade soap, which if you knew anything about homemade soap, you might have seen Granny doing it on the Beverly Hillbillies. Homemade soap is just a blob. They didn't care as long as they got that lye in there. That stuff will take the skin off of you, but hey, that's the way they used to make it, and it wasn't to be pretty, it was to be useful. So, he's as ugly as homemade soap was not a compliment. Another way somebody could be described is, she looks like she's been rode hard and put up wet. Rode hard and put up wet is not a good thing. That means she looks like she's done been down through it. She is tired. Somebody wore her out. Some job wore her out. She looks like she's been rode hard and put up wet. That's a reference to horses, because if you know anything about horses, when you get finished riding a horse, you got to groom them. You got to brush them down, get all the old sweat off of them so that they can recover from the ride. And this poor lady has not had no grooming. She's just got rode hard and put up wet. Another thing we use is, she could talk the ears off a goat. That's the lady that you know that talks a whole lot. She could talk the ears off a goat. That's just a way of saying she talks so much your ears fall off. Don't let anybody else get a word in edgewise. And another one is, that boy can't carry a tune in a bucket. That's an extreme way of saying he cannot sing. He tries, and a lot of these things will, of course, be followed by bless her heart or bless his heart. He can't carry a tune in a bucket, but he tries, but he can't. After your mama gets done fixing supper and you sit down and eat supper, a lot of times Daddy will say, "I'm as full as a tick on a hound dog." If you know anything about ticks and you know anything about hound dogs, that's somebody that's full, because ticks get on there and suck the blood out of the hound dog, and hound dogs are so lazy, they're just gonna lay on the porch and let the ticks go to it. So a tick on a hound dog gets pretty full. So that's the thing you'll hear your daddy and granddaddy say is, "I'm as full as a tick on a hound dog." There's a couple of phrases that still I didn't say and I heard people say, but they never really made any sense to me, is, I used to could go down to the highway and get me a good barbecue, but they ain't got it no more. I used to could. It means I used to be able to, but they say used to could. I know. These words get made up and everybody passes them around. And the other one is, I might could. Somebody might ask you, "Could you go with me down to the barn and help me load up that hay?" Your answer might be, "I might could. I got some other stuff to do, but I might could help you." That's kind of like, I may be able to, but they don't say it that way. They say, I might could go with you. Yeah, it's those things. They're unusual. And sometimes we get laughed at for all this stuff, but it's just a dialect. And different parts of the South have different parts of dialects too. So you have to say what other people are saying around you for them to understand you, but you got to understand them first. Everybody has heard "I reckon." If you've watched Gunsmoke and Festus, if you've watched hardly anything that's got people with Southern accents on it, you're going to hear "I reckon." And "I reckon" just means, I reckon Bobby's going to be here. I don't know. It can mean I think, I thought about it, I'm considering it. I reckon. And it's a whole sentence. When somebody asks you a question, you can say, "I reckon." You don't even have to finish it. It's just, "I reckon." There's several things that Mama will say, sometimes Daddy, but in my house it was Mama that did the disciplining. So you'll hear things in the South like, if you don't sit down and behave, I'm gonna jerk a knot in your tail. That's not good. It's the same thing as I'm gonna tan your hide. So you have to watch out when Mama says them things. You want to sit down and behave. One that I don't like remembering is, you don't say those words. If you say that again, I'm gonna wash your mouth out with soap. I don't like it because I got my mouth washed out with soap. One time I did. I was about 6 years old, and I said, daggone it. I know that's not technically a cuss word, but in the South, where the church and religion is a big thing, they're very particular about the words you can and cannot say. And daggone it is too close to saying GD or something else with God's name in it. So you can't say that. You can't say daggone it. Apparently I had heard it from somebody, and I said, daggone it. Yes, I still remember what that bar of soap tastes like. You don't want to do that. That's just, no. If you ever wondered, it's nasty. There seems to be a lot of sayings about people when they're not in a good mood or they're upset about something. You will hear them say, she is having a hissy fit. She did not like it that he bought that truck, and she's having a hissy fit about it. There's also the conniption fit. They're about the same thing. It's when a lot of times a woman, you don't hear a lot about men having a conniption fit or a hissy fit. They're mostly women. And it's when they are being considered hysterical over something. And you know how men like to call women hysterical. Most of the time, it's over something that the man did. But a hissy fit and a conniption fit is when your mama, your grandmama, your Aunt Ethel, when they get mad about something and they are raising Cain about it, that's your conniption fit and your hissy fit. Another one that's closely associated to that is all tore up. That's when you're really upset about something. She found out her daddy's got cancer and she's all tore up about it. It doesn't mean she's torn like paper. It means her emotions are all torn up. So you will hear that a lot. She's all tore up because her cat got hit by a car. Bless her heart. She's all tore up about it. So if you hear that, you might want to give her some sympathy because she's all tore up. Something you'll hear at every family reunion, and just about any time an older person sees a little kid, they'll say, come here, give me some sugar. Give me some sugar. Give me some sugar means give me a kiss, give me a hug.
Give me some sugar.
And if there's any kids watching, it's okay to say no if somebody says give me some sugar and you don't want to give them some sugar. But in the South, it's expected. So you have to teach your kids in the South these days to just say, no thank you, I don't have any sugar for you today. But that's one of the things you'll hear Grandma say, come give Grandma some sugar. That's their thing. And most grandkids don't mind doing that for Grandma. Another thing my daddy used to always say is you need to straighten up and fly right. That means behave. Straighten up and fly right. There's also act like you got some sense. Act like you've been to town before. That means behave yourself out in public. Act like you got some sense. That's kind of assuming you don't have some sense, so you need to act like it. But that's what they say. Act like you got some sense. Straighten up and fly right. And one of my favorites is don't be ugly. And that, if you think about it literally, don't be ugly. I mean, some people can't help it, but they're talking about don't act ugly. Don't act. That's like Forrest Gump says, pretty is as pretty does, and ugly is as ugly does. That's what he's talking about. But a lot of times, mamas will say, don't be ugly. If one kid's picking on another kid or calling another kid's names, it's don't be ugly, be nice. One thing I heard a lot when I was growing up is, are you going in or out? Are you going in or out? Because, you know, kids, we're going in and out the door. We're going outside, we're coming back in, we're going out, we're coming back in. And in the South, it's hot. In the summer, it's humid, and there are flies. So every time we open the door, there's flies. As a grandma and a mother now, I understand. But we were always, Mama would say, get in or out, get in or out. And we're like, we are. We're in, we're out, we're in, we're out. We're doing what you said, get in or out. We knew what she meant. Quit going back and forth, just go one or the other. And were you raised in a barn? If you leave the door open, you're going to hear that in the South. Were you raised in a barn? Apparently, people that are raised in a barn leave the door open. I guess because that's what they always said. If you left the door open, were you raised in a barn? We're not air conditioning the whole neighborhood. Yeah, you'll hear that a lot. We also have some sayings about people that are considered not as bright as other people. One of those is kind of cute to me. That they say his cornbread ain't done in the middle. He ain't cooked all the way. His cornbread ain't done in the middle means everything's not working real right up there. They also say he ain't right, bless his heart. That doesn't mean he's wrong. That means he ain't right. There's a lot of things like that. Another one is he ain't got the sense God gave a billy goat. Bless his heart. Another one that's connected sort of to this, but it doesn't mean brain things are lacking up here. He's a mess. That can be said as sort of a compliment and sort of a not a compliment because he's a mess. That boy, he's always getting into something. He is a mess. Or if you got a little girl that's always dressing up and showing off and doing little shows, they'll say, she's a mess.
You okay? You're a cute mess.
That's what they always say. It's either, it could be good, it could be bad, but that kid's a mess. About several things that we talk about, a lot of things to do with your body, being tired. One of them, I asked my husband, who was raised in New York. He's not heard of most of this stuff till he met me. One of them is all stove up. When Daddy starts to get out of the chair and his back hurts and it's kind of stiff and his knee don't want to straighten out, he's all stove up. It usually means that he's been working hard and his joints ain't feeling too good. So he's all stove up. So if you hear that, that's what it means. Another one is I'm wore slap out. They love the word slap. For some reason, they like to put slap in a lot of stuff. It just means I'm very worn out. I'm very tired. But they'll say I'm wore slap out. I've been working all day. And another one about your body is she's eat up with it. Like poison ivy. I had poison ivy once. It was all over my face. My eyes swelled up. Couldn't hardly see out of my eyes. It was all over my face. I was eat up with poison ivy. That's a thing. If you've got something real bad, especially something that they can see on the outside, she's eat up with it. You can also be eat up with diabetes and cancer. You can be eat up with a lot of stuff. If it's kind of all over the place, you're eat up with. Another word that means something different in the South is spell. Now, spell can mean a lot of things. Spell can mean like spelling words. The letters in the word is spell. A spell can be something that witches do. Don't mention the witches, because then you got a whole nother video coming. Witches cast spells. You can spell words, but what they mean in the South is spell can be an amount of time. Come on out on the porch and sit a spell. They came over for a spell, but they didn't stay very long. It's not a specific amount of time, but it's considered an amount of time. But the other way we use spell is, did you hear Johnny had another one of them spells? It can mean anything from he fainted, to he had a seizure, to he had a coughing fit. It's usually something physical, but they will tell the whole neighborhood if you've had another one of them spells. Actually, they tell the neighborhood everything, but particularly if it's something interesting like you had another spell. If you know somebody that talks a lot, they can be known as a guy who would talk to a fence post if it'll stand still long enough. Now we know a fence post is going to do nothing but stand there. So this is a person who will talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, Also, a trait that my father has. He knows somebody everywhere he goes. He'll talk to a fence post if he'll stand there long enough. That's a talker. It's not just men, though. Women do that, too. And remember, that's sort of the same thing as she can talk the ears off a goat. So you got a man talking to a fence post and a woman talking the ears off a goat. I know. It's crazy. That's the way we talk. Two things that my husband brought up to me that he learned when he moved to North Carolina from Pennsylvania. He had never heard people say, cut the lights out. Of course, anybody from anywhere knows it's turn the lights off. But we always said, cut the lights out before you go to bed. And you plug in an electric cord. In the South, we say plug it up. I don't know why. That's just how I was raised. You plug it up and you cut the lights off. Or you cut them out. We would say you cut the lights out before you go to bed. I don't know. That's just the way it was phrased. Another one that I had issues with when I moved, surprisingly, from North Carolina to Tennessee, because I thought Tennessee, I was in Nashville, country music city, everybody was going to talk like me. They did not. Whenever I started talking, they'd say, where are you from? Because Nashville's got its own accent that I can't even begin to do. I've got friends that were born and raised there. They talk different than I do. They might sound the same to somebody that's not from the South, but we got our different accents. But I would say, I'm going to carry my sister to the store with me. And you're going to carry her? Or I got to carry my mama to her doctor's appointment. You're going to carry her? And everybody kept asking me about, why are you carrying her? I didn't know what I was saying that was wrong. Found out that to somebody outside of where I came from, if you say I'm carrying somebody somewhere, it means you're carrying them. Like I'm going to carry my mama to her doctor's appointment, like I'm carrying her in my arms like a basket. I did not know that. It's take my mama to the doctor. I'm going to take my mama to her doctor's appointment. I'm going to take my sister to the store with me. I'm not going to carry them. I learned real quick. I got that out of my vocabulary real quick because people made fun of me for quite a while till I got used to saying it the other way. We also have a lot of things about the weather that we say. There's a bazillion of them, but the two that stood out to me as I was planning for this is, it's hot as blue blazes. I'm sure y'all have heard it's hot enough to fry an egg on the sidewalk. But in the South, they would say it's hot as blue blazes. And apparently, the blue part of the flame is the hottest part of the flame when you got a fire going. So, it's hot as blue blazes. And believe me, in eastern North Carolina in the summertime, in a tobacco field, it was hot as blue blazes. The opposite of hot as blue blazes is it's hog killing weather. Now, my husband thought this one was hilarious when I said, have you ever heard of hog killing weather? He didn't know about that because hog killing weather means it's extremely cold. Because, now there's a reason behind this one. It's hog killing weather when it's really, really cold, because when they went to kill a hog, they did it outside in the yard. When they killed the hog, half the neighborhood came, helped butcher the hog, get it all ready, get it dressed, get all the pieces cut, all the steaks and the ribs and the barbecue and the feet and the nose and everything else they were going to use. And they used everything. They did it all outside. They had buckets and pots and washing things and all kinds of paraphernalia together to get the hog all prepared to go into the freezer. But it needed to be cold outside because you don't want to be dressing a hog in the heat because, number one, flies. Number two, bacteria. I told you, people in the South are smarter than some people think they are. They knew that you better kill that hog outside in the cold so that it would stay fresh until you could get it in the freezer or get it in the oven or get it in the barbecue so you could get it cleaned and cooked or cleaned and frozen. So, hog killing weather is when it's really cold outside. The last one, I don't know if they say this in other places, but I heard my whole life, nothing good happens after midnight. That means you ain't got no business being outside the house after midnight. Actually, in my house where I grew up, my curfew was 10 o'clock. Out in the country, 30 minutes from anything, I had to be home at 10 o'clock till I was 18. actually till I moved out of my parents' house. I had to be home at 10 o'clock. And that meant, what did Daddy say? In the house. Not on the porch, not in the driveway, in the house, getting your pajamas on at 10 o'clock. Because why? Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. I never did figure out what could happen after 10 o'clock that couldn't happen before 10 o'clock. But that was the rule. And that was why. That was the reason. Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. Whatever your curfew is, nothing good happens after that. So you need to be in the house. I should ask him sometime what he thought was going to happen after 10 o'clock. I hope you've learned a little bit from my little Southern education today. And we'll be back next week with a new video. In the meantime, be sure and subscribe and like and follow our channel here so that you can come back and hear some more good things about the South, or some funny things about the South, or some education about how you can live a better life. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.
Y'all come back now. Here.